You do not have to tell a Cherokee child that this land belongs to them. They know. They can feel it in their feet as they chase each other through the woods, the same way their parents did before them and their parents before them. I knew, almost from the instant my feet hit the forest floor, that I was meant for this land, that this land was a part of me. I was 12 when they found gold in our land. The American year was 1828. Hundreds of white men came onto our land. I had never seen so many before in my life. My father said we had to be nice to them, that we had to share our gold with them if we wanted to remain friends. Our people shared as much as we could with the Americans, but it was not enough for them. They came and burned our houses and murdered our men. 2 years later, they passed the Indian Removal Act. It was a time of many tears. My grandmother said she refused to leave this land. She had been born here and she would die here. The next day she went to the woods and killed herself. After that, there were many court cases. My father and the other men in the town would relay information to us about the status of the cases, but it was rarely ever good news. There was many heartbreaks, many appeals in the time we waited for them to decide the fate of our land. To them, we weren't a real nation, so we did not have the power to sue. It didn't matter to us. We did not need permission to fight for our land. When John Marshall ruled that they could not take our land away from us, we rejoiced. Some laughed, some cried. I ran into the forest and buried my feet in the dirt. Of course, it could not last. Not even John Marshall could protect us from King Andrew Jackson. The trail was long and hard. I saw most of my friends die, 4,000 total. But still we kept going, we kept walking, always walking. I had no shoes, but after 2,200 miles, I began to wish for some. It was the only time in my life when I have ever wanted shoes. Once we had to cross a river. They would not let anyone cross until all the Americans finished crossing. We spent a night freezing under a rock because the Americans hadn't finished crossing the river. My mother died that night. Once some locals murdered a few of our men. Then they sued the government because they had to bury them. Once a baby was thrown in a river because it wouldn't stop crying. Once an old man fell down and was whipped until he got up. One mother was forced to leave her baby in a strange land because she did not have the strength to carry it anymore, and none of the soldiers would help her. Many died of whooping cough, dysentery. One night, 22 people died of pneumonia. It seemed as though there was a death every day, on a bad day, every hour. I expected the land at the end of our trail to be much the same as the land I had left behind. Oklahoma, it was called. When I saw that land with shorter trees and thicker bushes that was nothing like the land I had left behind, I began to cry. I began to cry for our land, the land I could still feel inside myself. I'm still crying for it. I know I will never see my land again, but sometimes I close my eyes and imagine I'm back on it. It's exactly the same as it is in my youth. I try to ignore the nagging feeling I have that the white men have changed it. In my mind, it is perfect, and for 1 second, I'm happy. But then I wake up still a stranger who has lived her entire life in a strange land. It reminds me that I need my land, that I cannot bear to live without it. I follow in my grandmother's footsteps.